In the ordinary fields of village, John stumbled upon a shining golden bottle that changed his life forever. Trapped inside was Julie, an ancient jinn whose powers could touch the skies. But a single mistake turned John's world upside down. Because of Julie's magical error, his beloved grandmother disappeared forever. Drowned in grief and anger, John never truly recovered. Yet, with his last wish, he bound Julie as his eternal servant. Together, this strange pair stepped onto a new path, one filled with secrets and dangers waiting at every step. The first rays of the sun touched the fields of village, but today the air carried a strange unease. With a shovel slung across his shoulder, John walked toward his small patch of land. His face was still heavy with memories of his grandmother. But Julie's powers had lit a faint spark of hope in his heart. Reaching the edge of his field, his breath caught in his throat. Where yesterday lush green crops had swayed, today they stood wilted and lifeless, as if someone had stolen their very soul. The soil had cracked dry, barren, and not a cloud could be seen in the sky. John's heart sank. He glanced around. The silence of the village pressed upon him like a blade. From his pocket he pulled out the golden bottle that gleamed brighter than the sun itself. Slowly he rubbed it, and a hazy smoke rose, shaping itself into Julie's figure. Her face was as mysterious as ever, her blue eyes shining like stars, though shadowed with deep sorrow. Without wasting time, John said, "Julie, my crops are dying. Can you summon rain, a rain that brings my field back to life?" Julie smiled faintly, as if she understood his innocence. With a snap of her fingers, black clouds surged across the sky. In moments, raindrops fell onto the fields, first light and gentle, then stronger, and soon a furious storm. The thirsty soil drank deeply as the wilted plants slowly began to rise again. John's face lit up with joy. Standing in the middle of the field, he spread his arms wide, letting the cool drops touch his skin. His heart pounded wildly, as if the rain wasn't just reviving his crops, but his very soul. Julie floated gracefully in the air, her silken robes shimmering as they soaked through. John laughed and gestured for her to join him. Hesitant at first, she finally descended into the muddy field. Raindrops slid across her glowing blue skin, her beauty gleaming under the stormy sky. John caught her hand, and together they danced in the rain, laughter echoing through the fields. Mud clung to their feet, yet their joy rose above it. He pulled her close, and they swayed to the rhythm of the storm. Julie's gaze locked on his, and for the first time, John felt a weight lift from his heart. Amid the rain's chill, a warmth blossomed between them. John brushed a strand of her wet hair back, and she held his hand in return. Their eyes met, and time itself seemed to pause. Her silken attire clung to her form, and he could not look away. Rain trickled down their faces as something unspoken, something deeper than magic, was born between them. He drew her into his arms, and together they stood closer than ever. This moment was no sorcery, no jinn spell, it was the pure bond of two souls, growing stronger in the falling rain. Julie's breath brushed his face, his heartbeat thundered, and for them it felt like the world had changed colors. But their joy didn't last long. The rain turned fierce, flooding the fields. The crops that had just begun to revive now drowned under rising water. Plants sank into the mud, and the field became a swamp. John's smile vanished. He turned to Julie, shouting for her to stop the storm. She snapped her fingers, and the clouds broke apart, leaving the sky clear again. But the sight before them was heartbreaking. The field lay ruined, his crops crushed in muck. John dropped to his knees, burying his face in his hands, tears flowing heavier than the rain. His heart cracked with despair. Julie approached gently, her voice soft yet powerful enough to move mountains. "Do not cry for something so small, John," she whispered. "I am a jinn whose powers can overcome every hardship in this world." She urged him to look at her, then snapped her fingers once more. A radiant light burst forth, as if the sun itself was cutting through the darkness. In seconds, the water vanished, the soil dried, and the crops rose tall and greener than ever before. John gasped in wonder, running to touch the leaves. They weren't just alive, they were stronger, lusher, shining in the sunlight like mirrors of his renewed hope. His face brightened again as he turned to Julie, laughing with joy. "With you by my side I can do anything," he said, his mind filling with dreams. Perhaps with her help he could even bring back his grandmother. The two walked back home together, chatting and laughing. But John didn't realize that this happiness was about to stir a new storm in the village. For in village lived a man whose very name brought fear and disgust, Jameson. At 40 he was known as the most vile man in the village. His eyes always glinted with sly cunning, his face forever shadowed with scheming. Whispers said his gaze lingered too long on young women. His presence alone made people uneasy. He rarely spoke to anyone directly, and his sinister laughter carried like a chill in the night. Jameson's fields were among the most barren, for he trusted trickery over hard work. Villagers whispered that he performed strange midnight rituals in the forest and dabbled in dark magic. That same morning, while John rejoiced at his revived crops, Jameson trudged to his own fields. His crops lay drowned, his land soggy with mud. As he looked around, he saw all the fields were flooded, except one, John's, lush, green, untouched by the storm. Suspicion burned in Jameson's mind. How could an orphan boy with no wealth, no resources, boast such thriving crops? His eyes narrowed, and a wicked thought sparked within him. Quietly, he made his way to John's house, knowing the boy lived alone, defenseless. As the sun set and the village lanes emptied, Jameson crept to a window and peered inside. What he saw left him breathless. John sat with a girl unlike any Jameson had seen before. Her skin shimmered blue. Her eyes glowed with a supernatural light. They laughed together, and with a mere flick of her fingers, she conjured a table full of food. Jameson's eyes widened with shock and greed. Then he saw her dissolve into smoke and slip back into the golden bottle. His mind spun wildly. She was no ordinary girl, perhaps a witch, perhaps a spirit, but that bottle held the key to endless power. His greed crushed his fear. If he could steal that bottle, he too could fulfill every desire. That night, under the moon's silver glow, Jameson returned home, but his thoughts circled endlessly around the bottle. He knew John was naive, easy to deceive, but what if the creature inside turned on him? Still, his hunger for power was stronger than his doubts. He resolved that the very next night, he would break into John's house and steal the golden bottle. Meanwhile, in his modest home, John sat with Julie as she recounted ancient tales, how she once aided the Solar Dynasty, how her kindness often became her curse. John listened in awe, enchanted by her stories, unaware that their laughter and her powers had already lit the spark of a new conspiracy in village. Jameson's eyes were fixed on the bottle, his greed pushing the village toward danger. What would happen next? Would Jameson succeed in stealing the golden vessel? If John discovered his scheme, would he use Julie's power to punish him, or would her magic lead John into even greater peril? The mystery of village deepened, each step leading into darker shadows, every moment pulling them closer to danger. This story is far from over. John and Julie Sepp's journey had only just begun, and Jameson Sipp's schemes promised storms yet to come.